Ghosts. When they crowd upon you, don't reject them. Welcome them instead, accept them as a part of you, since they invested in your life by being part of it and sharing you and leaving you with memories as part of them. Be not afraid of their imposing overwhelmingness. Acknowledge them instead and love them, for that's all they are if they continue after death. It is because their love survived them to continue flowing and expanding infinitely. The most foolish thing you can do is to turn them down, suppress them and deny them. Open up to all your ghosts and demons and whatever, and you will be richer spiritually than any billionaire of that which doesn't fade and pass, but only will continue growing and expanding as the only fundamental force of life forever. Marriage or not. You see too many marriages go foundering in conflicts, strife and quarrels, as if love established only could turn into hate, and many claim to be more happily divorced than married. On the other hand, there are true lovers, sticking to each other in consistent faithfulness, without deception, in pure friendship, without sex. And thus the proverb has arisen that the perfect sexual relationship and marriage is between philosophers, with some detachment and experience, but philosophers do never marry. Is then sex the cause and factor of disruption? There are after all still marriages that carry on with children and grandchildren in a happy family unto both gold and diamond weddings, but you never know what's going on under the surface. You can love and infinitely and forever even more, regardless of the social status or judicial condition. And the main thing is to stick to that. Thus even an anonymous and virtual relationship can prove more constant and enduring than a legal and material union under strain of mundane complications and the weakness of mortality. Awesomeness. The mystery of our love is unsettling, to say the least, as if we didn't dare to understand it, even less to grasp it, as perhaps a miracle too good to be true, or the most mortal danger we encountered. I will not risk anything, however, but patiently wait for destiny to interfere, and take no more than one day at a time for granted, expecting every day to bring another thriller. I have loved you, that is certain, now for many days, and no day less than any previous one, but rather like a calm and easy flowing river of stability and peace, and bringing only beauty. It is true, there is an abyss to pay heed to, wounds must heal, and there are ruins to restore, but it feels as if there is no end of time for us, but that there could be an eternity ahead of us. No illusions. I am not idealizing you. How could I, when I do not even know you? All I do know is that I sincerely feel you warmly as much more than just a friend, not just a colleague, but a spiritual associate that has survived her own annihilation and herself, as I myself have risen from the gutter. Let's have no illusion and no expectations, taking nothing and no possibility for granted, while we always can have dreams in common. Let us dwell together in a dream then, and idealize and embellish it with all our power, hoping never to wake up from it, and living for the dream of turning it into reality. The stakes cannot be too high. My eyes are on you day and night, although I cannot see you. Still, I must suspect that I can see you better with my feelings than with any senses of my body. Is it a sixth sense, clairvoyance, or prophetic insight? It does not matter. The important thing is only that I feel you and feel part of you, which is why I hope that you would also somehow feel like me. It is a venture where you have the upper hand with all the trump cards, while my hand is different, with completely different cards, completely without values, but the more of deeper spiritual values, which cannot be wasted for their permanence of faith and continuity. The language of silence. It is more expressive than words, communicating thoughts that cannot be expressed, transcending any digital communication, since the essence of creative thought is honesty. It cannot be concealed, denied, or faked, or masked, and thought is always the more true the more it is concealed and silent. Love in silence can be more sincere and true than any sexual act, and the deepest love is the most difficult to express. So listen carefully to languages of silence, to the voices that are never heard but only felt, and to the feelings that are kept under the ice, awaiting their momentum when it's time for them to burst. For no cement or asphalt or suppressing ice age can at length keep down the truth of honesty. Trying the bearings. When I dream of you in the night, the stars are not so bright as you seem in the light of my longing for your sight, which in our love's constant twilight always glows more bright. Are we getting closer for our longing, or just getting alienated in removing from reality by improving nothing but our dreams, in moving only further back in our retreating into love's undying yearning? The question is unanswerable, as our love remains unfathomable. Losses. They never can be remedied, they never can be compensated, and you simply must accept it. Griefs can be disastrous, one can die of sorrow, and inevitably there must be not only scars but wounds that never can be healed. It helps to cry, but only momentarily. To cry your heart out is important, though, as wounds must bleed to cleanse themselves. At best, you can survive the scars and bear them with their pain, but you can never count on getting rid of them, expecting them to disappear, for wounds of losses irreparable will hurt as marks of destiny forever, as you have been branded by injustice. Förluster. Du kan aldrig komma över dem, och det kan aldrig kompenseras, vilket du blott måste acceptera. Sorg kan vara ödesdiger, man kan sörja sig till döds, och det blir inte bara ärr man aldrig kan bli av med, utan även djupa sår som aldrig kan bli helade. Det hjälper dock att gråta, om dock endast tillfälligt. Att gråta ut ordentligt är av högsta vikt dock, liksom sår som måste blöda för att renas. Man kan överleva sina ärr och sår i bästa fall och lidande uthärda deras smärta, men man kan ej någonsin förvänta sig att någon gång bli av med dem för gott. För sår av oersättliga förluster måste göra ont för alltid genom ödets stämpel, som en brännmärkning av ödets orättvisa. Silly sentimentality. In the perfect modern society, tenderness was treated with contempt, as a stupid weakness and debility, and the worst weakness was sentimentality. However, there is nothing wrong about it. It is better to give vent to feelings than to keep them under cover and shut down. And softness has an endurance, while hardness always breaks. Of course, it might seem silly crying over a good sentimental book or film, but I assure you there is nothing more invaluable and precious in the human nature than the naturalness and sincerity of human feelings, which must always be let out in freedom, one way or another, since there's nothing that can stop them. Larvig sentimentalitet. I det perfekta och moderna samhället har man sett på ömhet med förakt som något av en svaghet och debilitet. Och den värsta svagheten var sentimentalitet. Men det är inget fel på sådant fåneri, och det är bättre att ge utlopp för ens känslor än att hålla dem tillbaka hämmade och instängda. Mjukhet överlever bättre dessutom än hårdheten och stoltheten som alltid måste brista. Det kan verka löjligt när man tar till lipen över en god boks och films sentimentalitet, men jag försäkrar att det något är mer värdefullt och heligt ovärderligt i den mänskliga naturen än naturliga och varma innerliga känslor som nödvändigt alltid måste släppas loss och givas utlopp på vad sätt som helst, då ändå ingenting kan stoppa dem. Inexpressibility. Relationships can sometimes go so deep that words are not enough and can't be used but for abuse, while silence is the only possible expression for a love that only can be felt and never properly communicated, since there are expressions and vibrations on a universal scale that not even the universe is able to express between two beings, but transcend the universal frame in their belonging to each other. Silent thoughts in darkness can be more expressive and more powerful than eruptions of volcanoes and reverberations of apocalyptic earthquakes, if the quiet thought is tempered and originated by the true sincerity and honesty of love. Den eviga skändningen. Människan har alltid varit sådan, skändande och lämnande ruiner efter sig. All historien är blott en ruinhög efter henne. Runt om hela Medelhavet vittnar alla nakna, fallna pelare om hennes framfart, odödliga vittnen om den mänskliga bärsärkargångens meningslöshet i en hopplös egoism och kortsynthet och blind okunnighet i ytlighetens flärd som tänker blott på mördandet av stunden som ett tidsfördriv i fåfängans hysteriska hetsjakt mot döden. De som vägrade ta del av detta och som såg igenom människan och hennes grymma djuriskhet besatt av köttets lustar och som därför valde att ta avstånd och ej ha något att göra med det mänskliga vanvettet, blev förföljda, jagade, föraktade och ofta drivna in i döden som utbölingar, fritänkare och kättare, hänvisade till ensamhet och ständig motståndskamp blott för att överleva, såsom Dantes 19-åriga exil och Shakespeare-diktarens tvångsanonymitet på livstid, så att till och med den kloke Platon i sin etablerade filosofi bannlyste diktare som Homeros som icke lämpliga i samhället, medan han därmed skrev under den antika civilisationens dödsdom, då Homeros diktning var dess skapare. Men alla dessa undantag, förkastade profeter, levande begravda, vittnen som man aldrig kunde tysta ens med döden, hade alltid rätt, medan historien hade alltid fel, vilket skulle bevisas genom de politiska ruinerna som är allt vad historien handlar om. A dirge. Man has always been like that, destroying everything and leaving only ruins, as all history is but a devastation in his trail, like all the broken pillars around the Mediterranean, bearing witness of his progress as immortal testimonies of the human berserk meaningless mentality in hopelessly short-sighted egoism and superficial ignorance and blindness, thinking only of the killing of the moment as a pastime in hysterically chasing vanity and death. Those who refused to share this madness, seeing through the cruel animality of man possessed by carnal lust, and therefore chose detachment from that lemming fever, in refusal to have anything to do with human folly, were despised and chased and persecuted, hounded often unto loneliness in exile, if not death, as outsiders, freethinkers, and heretics, forced to constant struggle of resistance to survive, like Dante in his 19 years of exile, and the Shakespeare poet forced to lifelong anonymity, as even wise old Plato in his high philosophy denounced and sentenced poets such as Homer as not tolerable in society, thus signing the death sentence of his own civilization, since the Homer poems had created it. But all these scrapped, rejected prophets, that so often were mishandled and buried alive, were witnesses that never could be silenced, not even by death, as they were always right, while history was always wrong, as constantly the ruins of politics proved, which is what history is all about. Humanity. When your tears of blood coagulate and your wounds heal into scars of lasting and perpetual ugliness to mark you as a branded exile from humanity and normality forever, still your heart will go on bleeding, never to be stilled or comforted in permanent invisibility of pain. The cruelty of others never will be felt by them, but only by the victims, and all they can do is to testify and go on testifying, never to let all those words and voices die that are the true life witnesses of the sincerity and everlasting truth of what humanity is really all about. The golden moment. The slightest fleeting moment can be an eternity. It is the genuineness, the sincerity and honesty that counts. If it is concentrated in a work of art, like some performance, some improvisation, like a chamber concert or a poem, or a moment's beauty in a ballet on the stage, it is a golden lasting moment of eternity, no matter how despicable the circumstances or the foibles and mistakes and maybe failures, regardless of how small the audience or how few the witnesses. Still, the truth and beauty of the moment of creation is the only thing that counts and that will last, as a materialization of your soul's eternity into a work of art or precious truth in a poetic moment. No time without shortage. Usually you have no time for anything, since there's no time without its running out, and so you have no time that is not running out. but when you do have time, it always is too short. So there are constant problems about time. Why bother? Time is only an illusion, a self-torture just to stress yourself with, a chimera and imagined threat, a fixed idea, distraction and disorder of your mind, which all the world is suffering from, a way to block you and control you, squeeze you into a cubicle society. Forget about the time and how it's always running out. The only truth of time is timelessness and the eternity, which always is at hand, and if you are aware of it, you'll know that you will always have all time in the world. Restored passion. In troubled times you search for a relief, and sometimes there is nothing there but hopelessness. But suddenly there is a cloudburst, and a ray of light breaks up the desperation, as you find an old love there again all of a sudden, and a hope at least for a return of passion and a necessary rehabilitation of your losses. You were always there to stand me by, and never to desert me as a guardian angel, although you have been much more at risk and faced unutterable dire straits in order only to survive, while I was always relatively lucky. Still, I need you more, perhaps, than I would need myself, since I am fraught with the obsession of my worries, risking to get drowned in them, while there is only you for my relief. It's getting harder and more difficult with the advancing years of constantly increasing turmoil, but as long as you are there and waiting for me, I will always have at least someone to love, with something of a hope, in spite of all, for my redemption. The hubris of despair. When you are tried beyond endurance, pressed beyond the boundaries of pain, and stressed beyond all reasonable tolerance, you have to set a higher gear in order to survive, and this may find some furious expression. In art, it often happens that poor artists, driven to despair by suffering or poverty, grow frantic and extremely personal in their creativeness and over-self-indulgence, like Van Gogh and Rembrandt, Beethoven and Schubert, spiting feasibility in hubris of despair. But it is never hubris, only moving into higher gear, replacing handicaps and limitations by the force of will and spiritual power, and there is no higher power than that combination. Förtvivlans hybris. När du drivs bortom vad som kan uthärdas, pressad bortom varje smärtgräns, stressad långt förbi vad som kan tolereras, du blir tvingad till att lägga in en högre växel bara för att överleva, och den stressen kan betyda att ett sådant tillstånd leder till bizarra uttryck. Inom konsten händer det att fattiga och utsatta konstnärer, drivna till förtvivlan av umbäranden och lidanden, blir extremt personliga, excentriska och svåra i sin kreativitet och överdrivna självutgjutelse, som Rembrandt och Van Gogh, som Beethoven och Schubert, som då transcenderar gränsen för det möjliga i sin förtvivlans hybris, men det är ej hybris. Det är bara oundviklighetens högre växel, som nödvändigt måste ersätta begränsningar och handikapp med viljans makt och andlighetens högre strävan, och det finns ej någon högre makt än den kombinationen.